Senate Minority Leader McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, on Wednesday took a shot at Democratic critics who have called on the Biden administration to put more pressure on Israel to halt planned evictions of Palestinian families from East Jerusalem, which has contributed to a recent flare up in violence. The Republican leader voiced strong support for Israel and criticized rocket attacks launched by Hamas into Israel as barbaric terrorism and not a legitimate protest. Whatever complaints Palestinians have with Israel's government, wanton violence against civilians is completely and totally inexcusable, he said on the Senate floor. Nor is it legitimate for Israel's obsessive critics to suggest any equivalency whatsoever between these inexcusable attacks and Israel's measured and quite targeted response against terrorists, he said. He criticized pro Palestinian protesters in Washington and other cities. Here in Washington, street protesters scream, "Listen to this. Israel is a terrorist state," he said. Some members of Congress echoed that rhetoric almost exactly. Look, the state of Israel has every right of self-defense. McConnell was referencing a comment from Representative Ilhan Omar, a member of the Progressive Squad of House Democrats, who on Monday said Israeli airstrikes killing civilians in Gaza is an act of terrorism. Palestinians deserve protection, she tweeted. Unlike Israel, missile defense programs such as Iron Dome don't exist to protect Palestinian civilians. It's unconscionable not to condemn these attacks on the week of Eid, referring to the Muslim holiday. Other progressives, such as Senators Snake Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have spoken out against a plan to evict Palestinian families from East Jerusalem, which is now under review before the Israel Supreme Court. I always mix those two up. Warren tweeted Saturday that the Biden administration should make clear to the Israeli government that these evictions are illegal and must stop immediately. Anyways, they're talking about other people's responses, but I do like here that they say McConnell on Wednesday instead sought to put the focus on Hamas's recent attacks instead of the proposed evictions. And that's very important because I'll explain this. Let me give you an example. Let's say I go up to someone and I slap them, and then that person's response to me slapping them is to punch me in the face and throw me against the ground. And then I go on TV and I say, "Oh my God, this person threw me against the ground and they slapped me. They threw me against the ground, they punched me in the face, went." And I completely leave out the part where I assaulted them first. If you listen to McConnell's statements, his commentary, right? He really makes it sound as if the poor little Israeli government was just minding its own business, not bothering the Palestinians, and all of a sudden they became very violent and acted like terrorists, and just it was so unwarranted. And I mean, it's insane. It's like they mess with their protesters. They try to kick these people out of their homes, and then you completely cut out these events that lead them to act in a, again, admittedly violent manner, um so that you can bootlick for Netanyahu. Violence against citizens is completely and totally inexcusable. Is it completely and totally inexcusable to unlawfully kick people out of their homes or mess with people who are protesting that aren't being violent? And he says Israel's obsessive critics. What does that even mean? Tell you, when you listen to these speeches, they use these words: wanton violence, completely totally unacceptable, obsessive critics, and it's all designed to be like this fluff that makes the person sound smarter than they actually are. Um, he has this part about Israel's measured and quite targeted response against terrorists, but he also leaves out the part where Israel provoked those supposed terrorists by acting like terrorists themselves and screwing with people who were legally where they were supposed to be, their homes that they tried to kick them out of. The state of Israel has every right of self-defense. Well, I would agree, but I hope we can say the same thing about the Palestinians, because I think if in the United States, if people were to, in mass, right, just be unceremoniously and unlawfully removed from their homes, you probably would see some violence. Um, And it's really disturbing that they peddle these narratives. They try to convince people who aren't paying as much attention that the Palestinians just decided to be evil and mess with Israel, and it's the complete reverse. I guess I shouldn't be surprised with McConnell's comments. It's just like it when you read the stuff he writes, you know why he's been the Republican leader for over 12 years, because he can BS with the best of them.